I recently read a study that completely changed how I think about sexual positions and female pleasure. The research looked at which positions were most likely to help women reach climax. And I have to tell you, some of the findings really surprised me, even after years of working in sexual health and urology. After reading the study, I did something a little unconventional. I invited 7 of my closest friends over for wine one evening, and we had one of those deep, honest conversations about sex that women have when we feel safe and comfortable. These are women I've known for years, women from all walks of life, different ages, different relationship statuses, different experiences. I wanted to know if their experiences match what the research was saying. And you know what? They did almost perfectly. So today I'm sharing with you what science says about the best positions for helping a woman reach climax, what my friends confirmed from their own experiences, and at the end, I'm going to tell you about the position that surprised everyone, including me. Because there's one position that most women in the study did not climax from. But here's the twist. It's actually my favorite. And I'll explain why that is, and why understanding this distinction matters more than you might think. I'm Dr. Amanda Brooks, your trusted men's health advisor. We're getting into some honest conversation today about what actually works for female pleasure based on real research and real women's experiences. This isn't theory, this isn't guesswork, this is data combined with lived experience, and I think you're going to find it incredibly valuable. All right, let's talk about the first position that both the study and my friends confirmed works consistently for reaching climax. Standard missionary with a pillow underneath her hips. Now, when I brought this up with my friends that evening, every single one of them nodded knowingly. One of them, Sarah, she's been married for 15 years. She said this is her go-to position when she really wants to finish. And she explained exactly why in terms that were so clear, so precise, that I knew this was something she'd thought about deeply. When you're on top of a woman and she has a pillow elevating her hips, you're creating the perfect angle for dual stimulation. Let me break down what that means from both a physical and emotional perspective, because both matter equally. First, there's the emotional piece. You're face to face, looking into each other's eyes. That creates incredible emotional connection. And for women, emotional connection amplifies physical pleasure in ways that are difficult to overstate. It's not just about the mechanics, about what's happening physically. It's about feeling desired, wanted, seen, appreciated. When she can look into your eyes, when she can see your expression, when she can read your face and know that you're present with her, not just going through motions, that intensifies everything. The research actually measured this. Studies on oxytocin release during intimacy show that face-to-face positions trigger higher levels of bonding hormones, which in turn enhance pleasure receptors and make orgasm more achievable. Eye contact literally changes brain chemistry in ways that support climax. But here's the scientific part that the study highlighted most prominently. When you're on top and you're grinding forward and back, not just thrusting in and out, but grinding with intention, you're hitting her clitoris. When you're able to stimulate her clitoris while penetrating her at the same time, you're creating dual action stimulation. She's getting clitoral stimulation, which is how most women reach climax, plus penetration, plus that emotional connection. When you get all 3 of those together, it's incredibly powerful. The study showed that women were significantly more likely to reach climax when the man was on top with a pillow underneath, grinding against the clitoral area. We're not talking about a small difference. We're talking about climax rates that were 40 to 60% higher compared to standard missionary without the pillow. And my friend Jessica confirmed this. She's always been really direct, never shy about speaking her truth, and she said the grinding motion is absolutely key. She said most guys think it's about thrusting harder or deeper, like it's some kind of competition to see how much force they can generate. But it's actually about that forward pressure and friction against her clitoris. It's about consistency, rhythm, and sustained contact. The pillow changes everything because it tilts her pelvis upward. This creates better contact between your pubic bone and her clitoral area when you grind forward. Without that elevation, you might be at an angle where there's barely any clitoral contact at all. You're basically missing the most important part of her anatomy for pleasure, no matter how good the penetration feels. One of my friends described it perfectly. She said, When a man understands that grinding motion, when he stays deep and rocks his hips forward, creating that pressure, maintaining it, not rushing it, that's when she can actually finish. Otherwise, she's just feeling penetration, which feels good, which is nice, but it's not going to get her there. It's the difference between enjoying the journey and actually reaching the destination. So when you're in this position, remember, it's not about speed or depth. It's about maintaining that contact and pressure against her clitoral area while you're inside her. Think of it like this. You're not trying to go deeper, you're trying to stay close, to grind forward, to create friction in that specific area. That combination is what the research showed creates consistent results across different women, different ages, different levels of experience. The second position that the study highlighted, and my friends absolutely confirmed, is when a woman is on top of you, leaning forward. When I mentioned this position, one of my friends actually laughed and said, "This is the only position where she has control over exactly what she needs." And that's really the key here. Control isn't about dominance or power dynamics. It's about being able to adjust in real time to create the specific stimulation her body needs. In this position, she's facing you, leaning toward you, and there's that face-to-face connection again, which we've already established matters tremendously for emotional bonding and oxytocin release. But what makes this position so effective is that she has complete control over the angle, the depth, and most importantly, the clitoral stimulation. She can grind against your pubic bone in exactly the way that feels best to her. She can adjust the pressure, increase it or decrease it based on what she's feeling moment to moment. She can control the speed, the rhythm, whether she wants slow and deliberate or faster and more intense. Everything is in her hands, literally and figuratively. And that control is incredibly powerful for helping her reach climax. The research showed that when women have control over movement and rhythm, climax rates increase substantially. Why? Because every woman's body is slightly different. What works perfectly for one woman might not work at all for another. When she can adjust in real time, she can find her perfect combination. Now, I know some men aren't huge fans of this position because they feel like they're not doing anything, like they're just lying there being used. But here's what my friend said makes it even better, and this is advice I want you to really take to heart. When she's on top of you and leaning forward, grab her hips on each side and guide her movements. Pull her into you with intention, with strength, with purpose. One of them said, "When a man does this, when he grabs her hips and pulls her down onto him, it completely changes the experience because even though she's on top, he's still actively participating. He's showing her that he wants her, that he's engaged, that he's not just lying there passively waiting for it to be over. That take charge energy, even when she's in the dominant position, taps into something primal. We want to feel desired and led, even when we're technically in control. There's something incredibly arousing about feeling his hands on your hips, feeling him guide you, pull you, show you through his touch that he's fully present and fully engaged. When she's leaning forward, her clitoris is making contact with your lower abdomen or pubic bone. As she rocks back and forth, she's creating that same dual stimulation we talked about earlier, clitoral contact plus penetration. And because she controls the movement, she can find exactly the right angle and pressure that works for her specific body, her specific anatomy. The study pointed out something important here that I think deserves emphasis. Every woman's anatomy is slightly different. The distance between the vaginal opening and the clitoris varies from woman to woman. For some women, it's closer. For others, it's further apart. This anatomical variation means that a position that works perfectly for one woman might not provide enough clitoral stimulation for another. When she's on top, she can adjust to make sure she's getting what she needs. She can lean further forward or sit more upright. She can change the angle of penetration. She can rock in a way that maximizes contact with her clitoris. That's why this position showed such high success rates for climax across the study. It accommodates individual variation. You can also enhance this with your hands. Touch her breasts while she's moving. Run your hands down her sides, along her waist, feeling her body. Pull her down for a kiss. Whisper in her ear. Those touches, those moments of additional connection, they make all the difference because they keep that emotional bond strong and show you're engaged, not just physically present, but emotionally invested. Now, here's where the conversation with my friends got really interesting. Because while these two positions are proven to help women reach climax, they all agreed that they can get repetitive over time if that's all you ever do. And this is important, so listen carefully. Variety matters. Not every position is going to give her the same intensity of climax. Some positions might not lead to climax at all, but variety keeps things exciting. It keeps the fire burning, the spontaneity alive, the sense of adventure and exploration present in your intimate life. When you confidently move her body into different positions, when you take charge and say, "I want you like this," that unpredictability is incredibly attractive. Sarah said she loves when her husband changes positions during sex because it shows confidence. It shows he knows what he's doing, that he's in charge in a good way, that he's not just going through the motions or following some script. That spontaneity, that sense that he's fully present and responding to the moment, keeps her attracted to him even after 15 years of marriage. Those two positions create connection and consistent results. They're your foundation. Your go-to positions when helping her finish is the priority. But women also want passion, intensity, and variety. We want that unexpected moment, that position that feels raw and exciting and spontaneous. We want to feel desired in different ways, to experience different sensations, to keep that spark alive. So use those two positions as your foundation when you want to help her finish. But don't be afraid to mix in other positions earlier in your intimate time together for excitement and passion. Start with something more intense, something that builds energy and arousal. Then transition into one of these proven positions when you're getting close to the finish line. Think of it as a journey with different phases, not just a race to the end. Now, before I tell you about the surprising position from the study, I need to talk about something that impacts everything we've discussed: blood flow. Because no matter what position you're in, no matter how perfect your technique, if blood isn't flowing properly to the genitals, arousal and climax become much more difficult for both partners. Both men and women have erectile tissue that needs to engorge with blood for maximum pleasure and sensation. For men, that's obvious. For women, it's equally important but less widely understood. Proper blood flow to the clitoris and vaginal tissue creates the engorgement that increases sensitivity, lubrication, and responsiveness. When blood flow is restricted, whether from stress, poor cardiovascular health, smoking, diabetes, or declining nitric oxide production as we age, it's harder to become fully aroused and reach climax. This is true regardless of technique or position. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, which means it helps relax and dilate blood vessels so blood can flow more easily. Think of it as opening the pathways that allow blood to rush to the genitals. More blood flow to the genitals means better sensitivity, stronger sensations, more natural lubrication, and more intense experiences. This applies to both men and women. When blood flow is optimal, everything works better. Arousal happens more easily, sensations are more intense, climax is more achievable. When blood flow is compromised, even perfect technique can fall short. So while technique and position matter tremendously, don't overlook cardiovascular health, stress management, and circulation. Regular exercise, proper nutrition, stress reduction, adequate sleep, all of these support healthy blood flow and therefore better intimate experiences. All right, now here's the part that surprised me and made for the most interesting part of our conversation that evening. The study looked at which position was least likely to result in female climax. And when I read this, I was honestly a little shocked because this is actually my favorite position. Are you ready? It's doggy style. According to the research, this position had the lowest rate of women reaching climax. And when I mentioned this to my friends, 6 out of 7 immediately agreed. They said, yes, that position feels intense. It's exciting. It's passionate. There's something primal about it. But they rarely, if ever, finish in that position. But here's where I differed from both the study and most of my friends. This is actually my favorite position, even though I don't usually climax from it. Let me explain why that is and why this is actually an important lesson about understanding the full spectrum of what makes intimate experiences satisfying. The study identified 2 main reasons why women are less likely to climax in this position. First, there's no face-to-face connection. She's facing away from you, not seeing your eyes, your expression, your body. She can't read your face or maintain that visual connection. And as we've discussed, connection matters tremendously for amplifying pleasure, for triggering those bonding hormones, for creating the emotional foundation that supports physical climax. Second, and this is the bigger reason from a purely physical standpoint, her clitoris isn't getting stimulated naturally in this position. The study showed that most women, roughly 70 to 80%, need clitoral stimulation to reach orgasm. When you create dual stimulation, clitoral and internal, that's when women reach climax most consistently. In doggy style, the clitoris doesn't get any attention unless you reach around manually, which is difficult to maintain consistently, while also maintaining the rhythm and depth that makes this position feel good. So scientifically, it makes perfect sense why fewer women climax in this position. The two main factors that support female orgasm, face-to-face connection and clitoral stimulation, are both absent. But here's what I told my friends. And here's what I want you to understand, because this is perhaps the most important insight of this entire conversation. Just because a position doesn't lead to climax doesn't mean it's not incredibly enjoyable, valuable, or important to your intimate life. For me, this position provides something different. It's primal, it's intense, it feels raw and passionate in a way that face-to-face positions sometimes don't. There's a psychological element to it that I absolutely love, even though I know I'm probably not going to finish from it. There's something about the energy, the forcefulness, the feeling of being desired in that particular way that creates a different kind of satisfaction. And this is the key insight I want you to take away. Sex isn't just about the climax. It's about the entire experience, the variety, the different sensations, the emotional journey, the different ways of feeling desired and connected. Some positions are perfect for creating that intense, passionate energy. Others are proven to help her reach climax. When you understand what each position offers, you can use them strategically to create a fuller, more satisfying, intimate experience. So don't avoid doggy style just because the study says women are less likely to climax from it. Use it for what it offers, that intensity, that primal excitement, that feeling of raw passion. Then transition to one of those science-backed positions when you're ready to help her finish. One of my friends said her partner does exactly this. He'll start with something exciting and intense, something that builds passion and energy, then move into missionary or her on top when they're getting close. He understands that different positions serve different purposes. He's not just following a formula, he's orchestrating an experience. That's sophisticated. That's thoughtful. That's the mark of someone who understands that great sex isn't about one perfect position or one perfect technique. It's about variety, intentionality, and responding to the moment. Here's the bottom line from both the research and real women's experiences. The two positions most likely to help her reach climax are missionary with a pillow under her hips and woman on top leaning forward. Both create clitoral stimulation and face-to-face connection. Both allow for the dual stimulation that most women need to climax. Both showed consistently high success rates across the research. The position least likely to result in climax is doggy style, because it lacks both of those critical elements, face-to-face connection and natural clitoral stimulation. But that doesn't mean you should avoid it. It offers intensity and variety that keep things exciting, passionate, and emotionally engaging in different ways. Use those two proven positions as your foundation for helping her finish. Mix in other positions for excitement, passion, and spontaneity. Understand what each position accomplishes and use them intentionally. Don't just randomly cycle through positions hoping something works. Be strategic, be thoughtful. Start with passion, build connection, finish with one of these science-backed positions that create the dual stimulation she needs. Try these insights the next time you're intimate and pay attention to how she responds. Notice the difference when you focus on clitoral stimulation and connection. Notice what happens when you grind instead of just thrust. Notice how her breathing changes, how her body responds, how she reaches for you differently. Your intimacy is worth understanding, and knowing what actually works makes you a better, more confident partner. It takes the guesswork out. It removes anxiety. It lets you show up fully present because you're not wondering if you're doing it right. You know you are. Thanks for watching.